Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Kachikwu, says the country will have to halt oil production if the cost of producing the commodity remains stubbornly high. Speaking at a forum in Lagos, the minister admitted his concern about Nigeria being left behind by its peers who had dramatically reduced their cost of oil production. He says countries within the United Arab Emirates had cut costs very low, describing them as the lowest cost producers in the world.
Now, what does the future portend for us? Not very exciting. At a time when we first need to deal with systemic issues in our system, systemic corruption, systemic controls, politicization of the economy, at a time when we have to fight those processes even to make a headway, our peers are leaving us behind. Who would have believed that Saudi Arabia, for example, would suddenly begin to think of floating bonds? Who would believe that countries within the UAE will begin to cut costs very dramatically, begin to look at unemployment, begin to address efficiency in production, because they had so much going for them, and they are still the lowest cost producers in the world. Our cost per barrel today is about $27 a barrel for JV fields. But yet, in Saudi Arabia, it's about $9 a barrel. So we are way, 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 way apart in terms of costs, that anything that happens will hit us and hit us very hard. So whilst that is going on, people are moving away from oil. The lifespan of oil, from whatever calculations you do, is probably within 25 and 30-year period. That's what it is. Everybody's moving away. Electric cars are taking over. Environmentally friendly power sources of supply are taking over. Solar systems are kicking in. So very soon, what will happen really is that even the funds to be able to address your oil exploration will become not available, because funds follow market, they follow returns. And if returns in oil continue to sag the way they have sagged over the last 2-3 years, there'll be no future for oil. So when people say we have a bit of time to change, we really do not have any time. At best, we probably have not more than 5 years, critical 5 years, to make very dramatic decisions in this country, in this field. And what are those decisions? First, the policy is got to be very bold and very consistent and very long-termed. It is not going to be a policy that changes with the coming of any new regime trying to tinker with concepts. People must know the basis upon which they invest. And the oil outlook is a 25, 30-year period. It is not a 5-year, 10-year period.
The minister also raised concerns about lack of investment in the country. He says a lack of a consistent policy by African leaders and high rate of insecurity is driving investors away from the African continent.
Investments are disappearing. Over $300 billion worth of investment have disappeared over the last 3 years in exploration and production. And what that means is that countries in Africa get the first hits, although we're resource advantaged. But because of the inefficiencies, security systems, inconsistencies of policies, you find that investors prefer to put their limited capital elsewhere than in Africa. So we're very, very challenged when it comes to the loss of opportunities arising from this. Apart from the job losses and investment funds, there's an infrastructural gap. Unlike most countries of the world, Nigeria, for example, has not focused on infrastructure. We have a huge infrastructural deficit. When I went to China early last year, we took documents that showed that we had about $15 billion worth of infrastructural gaps in the oil industry. And that goes for anywhere from the crude pipelines to the refined petroleum pipelines to production facilities. Huge, huge infrastructural gaps. And unfortunately, not an opportunity to be able to replace those, because a lot of those infrastructures were provided by government. In my view, in a business process, that really wasn't the right process. We didn't engage the private sector sufficiently. So now that we need to bring them in, it's basically a new field for everybody. So there's a huge learning process for the private sector. And one of my greatest work, really, is to move the dialogue away from the public sector finance infrastructure to private sector supported and financed infrastructure. And as you look at what we're trying to do with refineries, what we hope to do with the new petroleum policy that we just passed with pipelines, the whole idea is to move very aggressively to the private sector to provide the funding for this. Because government doesn't have it, government can't do it, government does it at a very expensive rate, and at the end of the day, the nation loses a lot of money.